Welcome to this tour of the Eric Carle Museum. I'm your host, Bessie Bird. Today we visit the only picture book museum in the continental United States of America. It was opened originally in 2002 on the site of an old apple orchard. And when you walk into the lobby, this is what you see. You see these gigantic paintings by Eric Carle, which sort of go on these pure white walls, kind of like the pages of the book itself. Kids who come can play in the art studio, and they can make their very own art. They can check out the sculpture outside of a red elephant by Mo Willems, of all people. You cannot play on it. In fact, it made my daughter cry. Over here, you have the Leo Liani sculpture. So many author illustrators actually do sculpture as well. It's kind of shocking. Another thing kids can do is they can walk on over here to the library. They can take out some picture books. They can look at them. They can read them. They can stay for a story time or two, and that's always lots of fun. And then when they're done with that, they can wander on out. If you're an adult, you might want to check out the Elman Research Library, though. It's also just around the corner. There is a book there, Wild Things, Accidents from Children's Literature. Interesting book from home. There's an auditorium where they have regular performances and talks. And, of course, the exhibits. The day I was there, they had a Sims Tayback exhibit going on. Absolutely fantastic. Now, originally, when they opened this up, they didn't have a space for Eric Carle's art. People kept asking where it was. So it seemed to them they had to make a permanent space for it. And that is right here. This is the art of Eric Carle. Anyone can come in and check it out. And it's not just his picture book art either. Some stuff that he did when he was a designer, some costumes he's done, and of course, here is the permanent exhibit things just acquired. Also, when I was there was a fantastic exhibit on Louise Fitzhugh and Harriet the Spy. Here's some letters between Miss Fitzhugh and Ursula Nordstrom, her editor at the time. And you can see the original art on the walls, which is amazingly well preserved. I know that the Suzuki Bean art she did didn't hold up so well, but this art, fabulous. And the exhibit places it in context. Look at that. There's Harriet's parents. Oh, it's so good. Well, and that's pretty much all there is to see, but check it out for yourself sometime. It's well worth a visit.
All right. Well, thanks so much for joining me. This is Elizabeth Bird. I am your host of Fuse 8 TV. And let's take off the glasses. Today, we are being joined in this our second interview with none other than Lisa Graff herself, the fantastic author of just a gazillion fantastic middle grade books, many of which I'm sure you have read. The long listed, for example, last year by the National Book Award, Tangled Knots. This year she has Absolute Almost, which is getting a lot of acclaim and, not to curse things, blueberry buzz. And Lisa, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Yes. Just to dive in, let's just get right to it. Really why I sort of asked you to join me today is I am fascinated by your career. I am fascinated by what it takes to be a middle grade novelist for kids in this day and age. And a lot of what you have done with your career, I think, has been incredibly useful and instructive to people who want to do the same. So just to start us off, can you just tell us how you got started as a writer?
Yeah, let's see. Well, I started, my first published book was a book called The Thing About Georgie, which came out 2006, I think. And that was a book that I worked on when I was in grad school at the New School. And so it sort of came out of just a project that I was working on there.
Mm-hmm. And like, what I like books is they're all, I guess Tangle of Knots is the only one that could really be considered fantasy, but mostly they tend to be, and even then, that one had a lot of grounding in the real world. And that's what each one feels very real. Each child is very distinct, but they feel very real. What kind of training did you do to become a writer?
Well, I mean, I went to grad school. I did the New School program, so that was really where I got my training, I guess you could say. Before that, I always loved writing, but it was never something I considered as a career. So I sort of came out of my undergraduate degree, which was in linguistics and psychology, and I thought, what on earth am I going to do with this? And I realized not a lot. So I ended up going to graduate school just because I loved writing, and I thought, maybe if I can get into graduate school, this is possibly something I can do. And that's where I really learned a lot about the craft of it. I also spent about 5 years as an editor at Farrar, Straus and Giroux Books for Young Readers at Macmillan. So I learned a lot there. But I was writing and editing simultaneously, so sort of learning both worlds at the same time.
Right. And then when you, you started, as you said, with the thing about Georgie, which I feel it was a very good book. I feel like your writing has sort of evolved over the years.
I mean, I definitely feel
your writing changed.
Yeah, it's changed a lot. I think all of my books, I'm not sure I would say necessarily that my writing's evolved, but I think that all of my books are very distinct and very different, and I think they all have a different flavor to them, just because I think I have so many sorts of stories that I like to read. So I think, oh, this one's going to be a really sad one, or this one's going to be a really quiet one, or this one's going to be the funny one. And I just like sort of experimenting with different books in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, when you started out, you had a very small fan base, and then that fan base has like just grown exponentially over the years. Have you seen your readers growing up and continuing to follow you? Have you seen, like you've sort of accrued fans in different ways? I mean, yours is very much, you're very much a 21st century writer, but at the same time, you're not doing like the John Green route where you like get fans also through video and social networking and things like that. So, what is your sense of your own fans, I guess?
I mean, I feel like the fans that I'm most directly in communication with, and so that I'm most aware of, are these really amazing teachers and librarians who have reached out to me and let me know that they use my books in schools and in the classroom, and that's been so incredible to see. And I feel like that fan base has really grown a lot, especially with my last couple books, in a way that is so wonderful, and I wasn't necessarily expecting. And I think because most of my readers are pretty young, I'm not as aware of who they are because they're not on the internet as much. So a lot of my YA writer friends, they get all these great like emails all the time and like Facebook messages from their readers, and I get a little bit of that, but I'm more aware of the librarians and the teachers who are using my books.
Yeah. And I can certainly attest, I spoke to a group of kids who were doing a mock Newbery, and I was informed before I came in, like, okay, just to warn you, they're still mad about Tangle of Knots not winning the Newbery last year, so they're going to be a little bitter about that. And I was like, okay, good to know. So there you go. You've got your fans in Brooklyn. They're going strong. Your most recent book is, of course, Absolutely Almost, which has been getting a lot of great discussion. I actually went on the Heavy Metals blog to read the comments there about your book, and was shocked to find that they are almost entirely positive, and just I couldn't find anybody being critical about your book at all, which was almost unnerving. I was like, oh, what does that mean? That's very interesting. And actually, as I was reading the comments, they started quoting my review of your book and criticizing it because I said something in the apparently 7 times that they really objected to. Can you just give a quick plot summary of Absolutely Almost for people?
Yeah, so I have it right here. Looks like this. So it's about a boy named Albie. He is just starting 5th grade. He lives in New York City. His apartment with his parents, and he has a lot of trouble in school. When the book starts, he's just starting a new school. He has been going to a private school, but he has gotten kicked out for his poor performance, although he's sort of unaware of why he's left his school at the beginning of the book. And he started going to a public school. And he has a lot of trouble adapting to his new environment. And he also has a lot of trouble with his parents. His parents play a large role in the book, and their expectations of him. And the main character who sort of comes in and helps him through is his new nanny, who is really the person who sort of understands him and gets him in a way that his parents don't.
Mm-hmm. And the word that I used to describe in my review, and people really, really object to, and so you may also object to it, and if so, I'm curious to hear what word you would use instead, is I call him average. I say that he's a very average kid. He's not an extraordinary kid. He's not like a kid who excels in math and science and reading or any of those. He's just a very average kid. Now, some people are like, no, he's clearly below average, and that's where his problems are. Do you see him as average or below average?
I think it's been really interesting for me to see people's opinions on it and thoughts on it. In a way, it's like not like controversial, but people have been sort of arguing about it in a way I didn't really expect. And I wrote him going in. I wanted to write about a kid who wasn't as smart as everyone else, who just had a lot of trouble with school and was never really going to get there. And so for me, I would probably call him below average. But I think that in looking at the way that other people have interpreted it, I feel like they're perfectly valid interpretations of the book. So it's kind of fascinating to me to see that. So that's not necessarily the way that I wrote it, but I don't think it's an incorrect way to read it.
Mm-hmm. And I just love that. I like what you just said about how he's just not going to get there. He's never going to be that A+ student. And that moment in the book when his mom realizes he's not dyslexic, and it's crushing for her to realize that fact. I've never seen anything like that in a book before, and I thought that was just dead on for a certain type of parent. But I love your reaction to that. Well, yeah, it's a fantastic book, and I'm just sort of curious. Can you say what you're working on next?
Yeah, I have a new book coming out. I put a copy of it here so I could hold it up for you. So this is my new book that comes out in May. It's called Lost in the Sun, and it's a sad book. I decided to go sad next. So this book is about a boy named Trent who is 12 years old. He's starting 6th grade, and before the book starts, he's had sort of he's been the cause inadvertently of a tragic accident in which another boy actually dies. And so it's sort of the aftermath of that and him sort of dealing with it and his guilt. And I'm making it sound like a huge downer, but I promise there's some good stuff in here. It's not all sad and tragedy.
Is that middle grade or is that YA?
It's middle grade. It's a little bit more upper middle grade, but it is middle grade.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me. It's just so good to talk to you. I wish I could talk to you for half an hour, but I know, have to wrap it up. But anyway, we're looking forward to your books. We're looking forward to what else you have coming out, and we're looking forward to see what happens with Absolutely Almost, since it's such a beloved book right now. People are really, really going for it. So, I've
been really stunned by the reaction to it, because I thought it was so quiet no one would want to read it. So I've been really pleased with how people have responded to it.
No, people have been pairing it with Wonder. It is the Wonder read-alike, apparently, which I wouldn't have necessarily come up with, but a lot of people are saying that about it. So well done there.
Well, thank you.
But anyway, yeah. So yeah, thanks so much for talking with me.
Yeah, thanks. This was really fun.
Yeah. All right, and that wraps up our second Fuse News, or rather Fuse number 8 TV. If you would like to know more about our fantastic speaker who just came up, she is published with Penguin Books, and her most recent book, of course, is the aforementioned Absolutely Almost, which has gotten a lot of fantastic buzz, and as you can see, many, many, many starred reviews. A star review from Booklist, a star review from Kirkus, and a star review from Publishers Weekly. For those of you who enjoy School Library Journal, please remember you can get your School Library Journal on your iPad these days. It is an easy way to carry some of the best news in children's literature around in your bag. And as for me, that is all that we have for you today. Thank you so much for watching. Have a good one.